All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our trades for today. So as usual, we started out the day with our options trades, right? Placing these. Today was hard to do for whatever reason. I don't know why. Thinkorswim as of late, it's been just slow filling orders. I typically flip-flop between Thinkorswim or and Robinhood, but because I'm just trading on a small account, I have to make sure that I'm, operating with that PDT restriction, right? So you kind of only get a couple trades on one and then a couple trades on the other. Now, typically, if you time it right, you can flip flop back and forth. But I had all kinds of problems today placing trades. So, as usual, we start with the options first, right? So the market opens, we wait about 5 minutes. We have a 5 minute candle. We're going to go ahead. So we have the 5 minute candle here, and then we're going to go ahead and wait for this to open. So as usual, what I like to do is I'm just going to scroll forward in the video a little bit. What I'm doing is I'm placing the options, right? What I'm doing is I'm looking over here at the expected move, plus or minus 2.3. I usually round that up. So I like to go plus or minus 3 in this case. Um, so right now the stock is, I think, up around, where is it at? 606, 566. So I usually would move um, three up three up on the put options change or three in this direction on the call options change, but essentially producing what's an iron condor. So here you see that happening. Um, I'm currently operating on a scaling plan, or I'm scaling up my contracts throughout time, really looking for small gains of about 25%. So what I'm looking for, really, even though it's showing 60 here, you'll notice if we go back a little bit that we got 30, right? Is the credit. So what I'm looking for is about 25% of that. It's a high percentage hit. So I'm just looking for about $5 per each of these, but I need to count for slippage. I also have to count for Thinkorswim's contract trades, the pricing for that, which can be a bit much, which I currently have split between Robinhood and Thinkorswim. So what I figured is it comes out to about like $8, right? So I have to make $8. But here's the thing. So today, we start with the options first. Okay, cool. We execute the trade, nothing happens. And this went on for a while. What I typically do is I'll set a timer for a minute, then I'll go ahead and go to the charts. We'll take a look at it. You'll see where it's at. It never reaches this area. It is not able to fulfill this trade for quite some time. Um, and so ultimately I kept taking the trade off, kept putting it back on. I'll kind of fast forward a little bit so you can see. There we go. So again, took it off, put it back on again, and it just wouldn't take it, right? I have a lame GameStop trade on. I've had this thing on forever. Maybe one day it'll rip and I'll kill it. But for now, I just kind of keep it there. Again, very small. It's just one. Um, but here, I went to create a closing order and it executed it immediately for what ultimately ended up being a $10 loss. So that was very strange. Just glad it wasn't more than that, but ultimately kicked it out. Hit the execute button. You'll see me do this here. I try to get the $8 out of it. Okay, confirm and send, and bought it back, and it executed it immediately and sold it. But it didn't sell it for that amount. It ended up selling it, and I ended up losing ultimately $10 altogether. Not the end of the world. Again, with these trades, I'm really just working off a spreadsheet, which I'll show on maybe a future video where I'm just building it over time. Um, Fine, no big deal. All right. So anyway, fumbled around with that a little bit, trying to figure out exactly why that happened. If anyone knows, please put it in the comments below. Um, so from there, we're done with that. We move over to, that is what I did. So I attempted putting it back on again. I couldn't get the thing to fill, but then I came up against the PDT rule, so I decided just to skip it altogether. I did flip over to Robinhood, consider giving it a shot. It wouldn't work over there. And at that point, we're already at, at this point, we're already at like, see if I can find the time. Will it show it? No, it doesn't. But at this point, we're already past 9 o'clock. I do not like placing these trades past 9 p.m. for a variety of reasons. I'm sorry, 9 a.m. for a variety of reasons. One is that some of the time's already ticked off these options, and just I sort of just thought, okay, well, look, it doesn't seem like it's working in my favor on Thinkorswim or on Robinhood, so I'm not even going to bother whatsoever. Um, so I decided not to get involved at all today with the option play. Not the end of the world. Again, these are very small. What I'm doing is I'm building up a spreadsheet um, where essentially we add a Condor on. Um, so just start with with like little 25% gainers, right? So building up that spreadsheet over time and then adding and then scaling it upwards, right? Okay. So now we're over to TopStep, and today's market was pretty interesting. Um, One thing interesting about today's market is that we're up against these highs, and if I can find somewhere on here where you can kind of just see the start, there we go. So if you take a look here, you'll notice we have a lot of highs going on up here, right? Um, so we're right up against the high of this market. Now, coming off the election, I sort of felt like we possibly could break through this today. I mean, we have a bit of a catalyst, that being the election. So and with TopStep, I do have a funded account, express funded account. So anyway, but I had a really rough day yesterday. So yesterday I took some trades that just were not the best, ended up being down about $600. I attempt to take reversals. I don't like taking reversals. I feel as though reversals are um they're they're high risk, kind of low reward, right? So I decided to stay out of it. Instead, I just stuck with what I usually do. And what I usually do is this. I create a gate. What I do is I go about 15 minutes in. I create a gate and put the high here. I'll put the low there. I wait for it to break, and when the 20 EMA exits the gate, when the first one flashes red at the bottom, I'll go ahead and buy in there. And I place my stop, depending on how far away I am from the gate, down around the gate itself. If that's a lot, then I may reduce that risk a little bit, um, do the swing low, but ultimately I just kind of keep it at the gate, and I've had pretty good success with that so far. Again, trading's risky. If you're watching this, I highly recommend that you don't necessarily do what I'm doing. Trade your own way, and trading is very risky. But I've had pretty good luck with this so far. In other words, I've done some back testing on this and have noticed that this strategy tends to work out pretty well. Um, and I can present those findings another time. But again, I don't recommend that you do anything that I'm doing. Trade at your own speed and your own risk, because you could lose money. But that's just the way that I do it. So ultimately, I create the gate here. I wait for the 20 EMA to exit the gate. And then on the first flash of red, when this closes red, then I'm entering down here for either the retest, or if I want to stay for some continuation, that's fine. I find in my own trading the probability on the retest is pretty good. The continuation maybe not so great. Just depends. The But as you'll see, it went up, hit the high, came down, and then the question is going to be, is this going to close under the 20 EMA? Which at one time it does, but then it manages to make its way back up. So you'll see it start to go. It starts to close. There we go. It could possibly keep coming down. And keep coming down. You can see over here where I have my stop. I have my stop right here at the gate, right? And then right now we're down a bit. Now it's fine with it. It hits the stop, we go. It's just one trade, one contract, that's it, right? And then hits there. VWAP moves outside of my gate. 20 EMA is also outside of my gate. And boom, up we go, right? For the retest. Now here, I needed to kind of make a decision. Are we gonna, what are we gonna do, right? But I wanted to see this go up a little bit. I was fine with the gate being here, with my stop being down here. If it came down and hit, that's fine. I wanted to see a little bit more continuation in this market. So what I sort of thought was, if for some reason we do break this, that it's going to move up a bit, but how much, right? Because remember, back here, what do we know? Well, we saw the expected market move. Now, this is not always accurate, is plus or minus 2.3, right? I felt comfortable maybe bringing this up to, I don't know. And just so you know, in case you're wondering why am I not just watching the ES, I prefer to watch the S&P 500 on this. I think for me it works a little bit better. I can see the dollar amounts, what it's hitting, where there might be some psychological resistance. I know that the relation isn't 100% between the two, but it's close enough for me. Um, and most of the time I just have this up. I don't even bother looking at my amounts. I find I can psych myself out. I just place my stop, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's just the way it goes. Um, place that here, and then it bounces up, and boom, there you go. We're up here now. And then at that point, it starts to break. Now, the question is, okay, great. It's broken, but where do I want to get out of this thing at? This is why I like using the S&P 500, the spider for this. And that's because over here we got 607.50, right? That's a pretty decent psychological place. Now it could go higher than that, sure. And the expected move, it was down like around, it opened around like, where's the opening? 606.81. So you could take it up, around, you could probably, take that up around even higher than that, maybe closer to 608. But I was fine with 607, like under 607.50. So I'm not going to take it right at 607.50. I'm going to take it a little bit lower than that. I'm thinking like around, maybe 35 even, like 607.35, 607.40, because I know that you can get some resistance there. And I want to have to go through another flag pattern just to try to squeeze another 50 cents out of this thing. So I was fine with that. Um, so let's see what happens. So it gets up there. There we go. I drew a line there, and then here you can see it starting to max out there. Cool. Awesome. We move forward and it punches up. There we go. And we get up here and I flatten out and I end up at 362.50 for the day. I am fine with that. Now, this went up quite a bit farther and I could have made more money on it, yes. And it got up to about that 308, that expected move. But, with that said, I just, after yesterday losing 600, doing stupid trades that I really shouldn't even be doing, I needed a psychological win. And I felt as though this was a great place to stop. So I was fine with it. I needed to have like that top step like 5 days in a row of like 200, or probably not in a row, but 5 days of 200 in order to monetize out or to cash out. And this actually satisfied that. Um, and I was fine with this for the day. Totally fine. And I also like the way I traded. I back test this a number of times. For me, this seems to work pretty well until, of course, it doesn't. But the probabilities line up for me a little bit better with this type of trading. So I prefer it. The reversals, I mean, yeah, it can close, it can close under, it can close under it can close under here and then possibly for some continuation, but you're down right at VWAP, right? That's why I didn't like this very much. I mean, you're down at VWAP. I don't know. I personally felt as though this was just, I liked I liked the 90 EMA, I'm sorry, the 20 EMA leaving. Um, and then of course the 20 EMA leaves the gate. And then at that point, and then at that point, just letting it leave the gate, looking for the first candle that closes red, getting in towards the bottom of that candle, and then moving upwards. I mean, that's my percentages with that tend to be pretty good. Again, trade at your own risk. I don't recommend that you copy the style by any means, but for me, this seems to work well. And when I try to do anything outside of this, and it doesn't work every time, but my probabilities tends to work for me on a probability standpoint. And when I try to trade anything outside of this, I'm either get caught up in a choppy market, or it just reverses but doesn't go enough, and it's just a bit of a mess, right? So staying out of range trades, definitely don't want to do that because that can mess you up. Um, and then, you know, really just doing this for market movement is typically where you want to be at. So decent day. Options were weird today. It's fine, not a big deal. But for this one, I will take. And that was the 22nd.